Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Packaging Europe podcast. My name is Elizabeth Skora. Today we're looking at the important topic of avoiding food waste with a particular focus on Nigeria. Each year a significant portion of the country's tomato harvest is lost before it ever reaches the consumer, which obviously is a big issue. And working to tackle this challenge is Tomato Joe's, who are an agricultural processing company that works at the intersection of agriculture, logistics and packaging, supporting smallholder farmers and refining supply chain processes through a combination of modern technology, improved transport packaging and education programs. And last year, Tomato Joe's won the Safe Food Project competition. And Safe Food was set up by Messe Düsseldorf and Interpack and works towards a reduction of food loss and food waste with a special focus on packaging innovation. So today, I'm very pleased to welcome Tomato Joe's Ehson Aklo to the podcast to find out more about how Tomato Joe's tackled the challenge around tomato waste in Nigeria in various different ways. So welcome, Ehson. Great to have you on the podcast today.
It's my pleasure to be here to talk about Tomato Joe's and what we're doing.
To get us started, could you maybe tell me a bit more about Tomato Joe's and the work the company does?
So Tomato Joe's was founded in 2024 by Mira Mehta. So Mira Mehta was working with Chai Foundation as at that time and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and found out that more than 50% of tomato produced in Nigeria was actually wasted. And when you travel around Nigeria, you will just see tomato at the gate, tomato on the floor, tomato everywhere on the roof, and people trying to just manage sun drying, doing all kinds of things to manage, because at the time of the season when there is glut, everything just goes haywire. The farmers can't sell at a good profit and you have significant loss. And we thought to start a company that will manage this loss, process tomato, and how Tomato Joe's started. So Tomato Joe's is a social enterprise that works with smallholder farmers to produce first and foremost their tomato, and then to provide market to offtake that tomato from the smallholder farmers, and then process it into packaged products. And so we work in the farm with the farmers. So we provide services in terms of loans. So we try to bridge the gap between what the farmers have not, all this while the issues with production and issues with processing. So production in Nigeria has a huge problem, and Tomato Joe's also works in that production as well as the post-harvest handling of the same tomato. So that's what briefly Tomato Joe's does.
Thank you. Yes, and we'll zoom in a bit more on the work of Tomato Joe's. But before that, I wanted to ask you, what are some of the main issues that have led to tomato spoilage in Nigeria? How did this come about?
So I think that the main issues of tomato spoilage is, the one is poor handling practices by farmers. So the farming practice, first and foremost in the field by the farmer, is very outdated, and then they use methods that will easily cause tomato to spoil. So farmers use sunken beds, and they use ponds to irrigate. That way the tomato fruits will sit on moisture and can easily spoil. One other thing is the issue of gluts in the market. I mentioned that earlier. So tomato is usually produced, the season for tomato production is just around 3 months. And everybody produces tomato around that time. So there's a huge glut in the market. And at that time, supply is more than demand. And so many farmers are unable to sell. The other problem is the problem of weather. So around the same time, once the temperature drops, the tomato spoils very easily. The other issues are around packaging, transportation. So the biggest market for tomato in Nigeria is in the southern part of Nigeria, but the place for tomato production is in the northern part of Nigeria. And then to transport that tomato from north to south, as in that the Nigerian roads are bad. The technology we use to package the tomato, we use raffia baskets, which are compressed on each other. And the tomato is, it's a tomato, it's a fruit. So once they are transporting the tomato compressed on each other before they get from, let's say, from Kano, Nigeria to Lagos, Nigeria, it takes a day or two. Before it gets to Lagos, the tomato is maybe like 30% is already bad. There are no cold storage in Nigeria. There's no grading. The factories are not taking. There are no factories to process this tomato. And then the organization of the farmers in terms of contract farming, where they can organize to give this tomato to even existing companies are not there. So there are a lot of issues around, issues that have led to post-harvest losses in Nigeria.
Yes, and I'll be keen to hear how Tomato Joe's work to improve this spoilage problem. Maybe starting with things like how did the organization work to support farmers and help them improve processes?
Okay, so what we do in order to support farmers is, first and foremost, like I said, there's an issue with production and the processing. So what we do with the farmers, first and foremost, is to introduce the farmers to contract farming. Now, which is something that is very alien to most Nigerian farmers, where they farm for a particular market. So the market is already existing before the farmer goes into farm. That way, the moment he harvests, he sells it to the market directly. There is a guarantee of a market. So what we do is we provide that contract. We work with the farmers to develop a contract where we have an agreement on, okay, how much the farmer is producing, how much waste the farmer is selling. From the start of the season, all of that agreement is made. Now, so that at the point of harvest, Tomato Juice is just coming to harvest that product to their factory, not to the open market that, the farmer will face competition with other farmers in terms of selling in the open market. The other thing is the issue of transportation and packaging. So what we're doing currently is to work with the farmers to get plastic crates. Now, these plastic crates, so during the harvest period, we schedule the harvest with the farmers, and during the harvest period, we go with these plastic crates. And once the farmers are harvesting, they are harvesting into this plastic crate. The tomato is now stacked into the vehicles in the plastic and then moved straight to the factory where it is offloaded. And so the farmer does not have to deal with transport issues. We are trying to manage that logistics for the farmer and providing that plastic crate so that when the tomato comes to the weigh bridge, the farmer is not losing on the way. That's the difference the difference in weight that the farmer got in his farm and the difference that we are measuring in our farm is not significant. The difference is marginal, not significant. So other thing we're doing is farmer training. So we're spending a lot of time doing training on tomato production with the farmers. Again, I mentioned that most of the harvest happens in farm because of poor management practices by the farmers. So we're training the farmers. I can talk more. I can talk more some of the things that Tomato Juice is doing much more in detail. But we're training the farmers on the best way to produce. That way, the farmer has minimal loss in his or her farm so that the farmer can provide that tomato to TJ and then the farmer's loss is reduced significantly. I think that I'll stop here, but we have other things that we're doing. So one of the most important things we're doing is irrigation, providing of infrastructure for the farmers. So Tomato Juice, one of the things we realize is that one of the difficulty that the farmers face and they have low yields and the problems they have is because they do not have infrastructure. So Tomato Juice provides an infrastructure for the farmers that has already installed irrigation system. So the farmers come in to that infrastructure. We lease that land out to the farmers and the farmers can come in, work in that land and then farm tomato and then sell to us.
Yeah, that sounds like it's a great help to farmers and also gives them a lot more stability. I wanted to zoom in a bit more on the packaging and transport and logistics processes, how this has affected spoilage and what you've done there to boost the process?
Well, I think I can put a number to this. So based on what we know, the spoilage of tomato from a point of harvest to the market and then subsequently to the factory or the end consumer, the number is around 30% just for transportations and logistics issues. And with what we have done, that number is almost less than 1%, right? Because with the plastic crate, with the transportation, we're already providing for the farmers. And then, of course, the product is moving directly to the factory. All that process, the middleman, the market, all of that is taken away. So such that the farmer has very minimal loss. And in fact, I can say that 30% is non-existent. The market access, which is the most important thing, farmers lose. And we say 50% because we don't want to exaggerate, but most of the tomato damaged in the market because there are no buyers during the time of glut. And with our system where the farmer does not have to worry about the market at all, the farmer has 0% loss. As long as he's able to harvest his farm, as long as we have agreed to harvest that farm, that tomato is taken to the factory, and whatever loss that there is, tomato just would even bear it on behalf of the farmer. And then we take it to our factory where we process, we concentrate this tomato, we make tomato into concentrate, and then, of course, subsequently into packaged tomato mix that is sold into the open markets.
I wanted to ask you, how do you manage to stay, or how do you keep sustainability considerations in mind while you boost yields and upscale the whole operation to maybe produce more?
So for sustainability, the infrastructure we have here is a full drip irrigation that we have drip irrigation system. Then we have soil sensors that manage the amount of water that the farmers are given, so that there is maximization of water. Then fertigation system. All of that is to reduce soil degradation and to reduce erosion and then maximize yield. For processing, we are actually working on. We have a water purification system where all of the water we use in the factory are all recycled. They are purified again, recycled, and we keep recycling. So we have a whole water purification system that keeps recycling the water that is used in the factory. We're also working on a solar project that will change from the use of fossil fuel to a renewable energy in order to power the factory and power the farm that we give to the farmer. So some we're doing, some we're working on, just to ensure that we're environmentally conscious, and at the same time we're also improving our yields and improving even the cost of production package, because our biggest cost, just by the way, is the cost of energy. The cost of energy is about 30% the cost of production. And if we can bring down that cost using renewable energy, that would be massive for not just for farmers, even for our final consumers.
I wanted to ask you about the impact that Tomato Joe's work has had to help support farmers and local communities. What improvements have you seen there in the last year?
So we just made some of our payments today, farmers' payment, and I think one of the young men, I think he's less than 30 years old here in this community, in the work they did in 4 months, just earned 1.5 million naira. What we are doing with the farmers is important. I would say two things. First is in terms of women engagement. So most of the women that we are working with currently were persons that were without a job. They were just sitting at home doing nothing. And with what Tomato Joe's brought in, with all of the investment Tomato Joe's is doing, like I said, we provide the irrigation service, we provide the loan service, the loan for the farmers. So basically, the farmers do not need capital to come and start work. The farmer just need the willingness. So most of our women participation, more than 50% of what we are doing is done by women. So for me, the most important thing is the women engagement. The second is the improving the livelihoods of the farmers. Like I said, if a farmer has to 50% loss in his tomato, that means that he has lost actually 50% of his revenue. And with that, since we're able to cut that loss, the farmer's revenue has increased significantly. So those are two areas. Aside from our direct business, of course, we're doing more in nutrition, something that is very valuable in nutrition, in, of course, the whole Nigeria as a whole. But the other area that I think is valuable is our work with the primary school that is in our community, in our immediate community. So one of the things we have done over the years is the primary school in our community is almost dead. Students were not attending. Education is almost optional. This primary school was dilapidated, nothing. But then Tomato just went in there, renovated the primary school, put in desks, started giving some allowance, even though they are government teachers, started giving some allowance to the teachers and some incentives to the teachers that are working there, and then also mobilize the community. So we have full attendance in these schools now. In fact, the block of the school that is available is not enough for the farmers anymore. I mean, for the community anymore. We're looking even support to, build more classroom blocks for the community. We're also working, the other thing we're doing is health insurance. So all of the farmers that we're engaging with, we also engage them. They are also insured health-wise. So we worked with the state government to ensure all of the farmers we are engaged so that they will reduce out-of-pocket expense, and of course, they will be healthier to work. Another area that I think is valuable in the community is security. So where we are is very, very fragile. I'm sure you heard a lot about Nigeria and you see a lot about Nigerian news. The security is very fragile. But with the work we're doing here, we're engaging the community. Individuals from the community are working here. And that way, this community engagement has reduced, if not eliminated, any security challenge that has been in this area before we came. So those are areas that I think that have been valuable in our engagement with the community.
That sounds really good. And like you're doing really important work there. How are you thinking of scaling this up to different places in Nigeria and maybe even beyond? And what was the impact of winning the Safe Food Prize as well on that? Has that given you a bit of a boost to growth or plan for growth?
Yeah, so our immediate goal is, so currently we're working on 500 hectares. And then our land size is around 200 hectares where we are locating these farmlands to farmers. And so we're only engaging just about 300 farmers in the dry season to work because of the limitation in irrigation. However, we're working on acquiring 2,000 hectares where we can scale this. So this is modular. We have proven that we can, while as a business, we can make profit, at the same time provide enough raw material for our processing factory, at the same time impact the livelihood of farmers. So the plan is to scale this to 2,000 hectares in the next 5 years, and then to continue scaling this up as funds. Of course, the funding is important, but then the most important thing is that in the next 3 to 5 years, we are planning to scale this to 2,000 hectares. Now, we have not... So for me, what is most important is that we have demonstrated a model, right? A model that can be replicated in other states. So most companies that work with smallholder farmers do not have this level of engagement with the farmers. Most of them want to do minimal engagement with the farmers because it's very capital intensive. They want to do as minimal engagement as possible with the farmers so that they don't have to put in money, put in a lot of stake, and then lose. But what we have shown in the tomato business, which is very fragile, is to show that this model can work and can be replicated with other crops. And other companies that are interested in expanding this with other crops can, take on this kind of model, because this is the only model that does this level of work with the farmers here. So for me, that is one important. The other thing is, you mentioned about the importance of safe food. I think one of the things is that, as a company, you're also careful about how much money you spend, especially if it does not directly translate to profits for you as a company. And I think that one of the things that Very Safe Food have done for us is to facilitate our adoption of the plastic crate technology that will be adopted in the harvest of the farmers' tomato to reduce that cost harvest for the farmers. The other thing is also, I think that one of the most important things is also visibility, right? Where I think that it is important that our work is also known, because very many people are looking for models that will be very valuable, that they can scale with other crops, and supply chain has always been an issue. And I think that as in Safe Food has created a kind of visibility for what we do, which other people can emulate and adopt. And we are in the tomato value chain, right? I think that there is a lot more that is happening aside the tomato, and other people can also come into this and, reduce the post-harvest loss that we have in other crops in Nigeria.
Yeah, it would be great to get other industries or other food sections inspired and apply a similar model. That would definitely be beneficial, wouldn't it? Yeah, to wrap up, I wanted to ask you, and this might be a repetition, but maybe there's something else you'd like to mention. I wanted to ask, what's next for Tomato Joe's in the nearer future? What are your plans?
I think our plans is, first, I'll talk about plans with the farmers. So first, I think that our plans with the farmers we have worked with is to develop them further from doing, from the place they have started to. So our goal generally is to make farmers that are subsistence, make farmers that are interested, make farmers that are subsistence from just peasant farmers to commercial farmers. So our goal is to move these farmers from where they are to become commercial farmers. Second is we're looking at doing 3 more SKUs for our product. So currently we had 1 SKU. We just launched this month. We just launched another SKU of our brand. And then we're looking to launch 3 more SKUs. Now we're looking at, in the next 5 years, to take up 15% of market share in Nigeria or tomato mix product in Nigeria. So those are our goals. Those are the things that Tomato Juice is set forth in the nearest future.
Great. Thank you very much, Ehson. Yeah, that brings us to the end of this podcast. Just leaves me to say thank you very much for being here and talking about Tomato Joe's. It's definitely really interesting conversation. Great to learn about what you do. Thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure. It was also nice to be here and nice to talk about what we do here at Tomato Juice.
Thank you. A quick reminder for listeners, make sure you subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any of the latest episodes. Thanks very much. Goodbye.